Hello and welcome everyone. In this video, I'll be going over my journey as a mostly solo Sorc from level 1 to 100. I'll be going over my general strategy as to how I progress throughout the game and providing tips on how to be more efficient, as well as going over the mistakes I made and what I would do differently a second time around. So without further ado, let's get started. In the early game, my strategy was simple. I wanted to progress through the campaign as fast as possible and get to the endgame content as soon as I could. And so, I played through the entire campaign on World Tier 1 since I believe that the bonus XP from World Tier 2 is just not worth it. So I basically skipped anything that wasn't mandatory, and the only side content I did was dungeons that would unlock specific legendary aspects that would help my class a lot. Since I was playing with ice shards, the only two aspects I needed were the ones that give back mana when I use a cooldown, and the ones that let ice shards pierce through enemies. By my second day playing, I had completed the campaign at level 43 with roughly 12 to 15 hours of gameplay. At this point, I wanted the free skill points from Renown, as well as a few extra levels to make the capstone dungeon easier. So I did a few strongholds and dungeons until I had at least one skill point from each zone. By level 45, I wanted to complete the capstone dungeon, but I wasn't really sure if I was strong enough, so I gave it a try and luckily I was able to complete it. I haven't really played the other classes too much, but from what I've heard, some of them can feel really weak in the early game, such as Druid and Barbarian. So if you're struggling to complete the capstone dungeon, I would recommend that you go around doing dungeons that you haven't yet completed, but that will also give you the bonus for the Tree of Whispers, as well as completing all the strongholds that you haven't done yet. Once I got into World Tier 3, I prioritized doing Hell Tides whenever they were up so that I could target farm specific items of mine that were very weak. And then aside from Hell Tides, I would go and do dungeons that I haven't yet completed but that were also giving bonuses towards the Tree of Whispers. That way you're double dipping the bonus from the Tree of Whispers as well as the extra renown. I think at this point in the game, a lot of people are going to be wondering what exactly they should be doing because there's no clear path anymore, and it's hard to tell what exactly the goal is. And in my opinion, your number one goal should be to get to World Tier 4 as fast as possible so that you can get increased XP rates as well as the best gear in the game. So that's what I did. I went to the second capstone dungeon at level 55 and I died over and over and over. I probably had 20 to 30 deaths or so, but I managed to kill Elias in the end. Honestly, this is one part of my journey that I would have done a little bit differently since I wasted a lot of time dying in the capstone dungeon, and once I got to World Tier 4, I couldn't even equip any of the gear until I was level 60, so it wasn't really worth it. I know a lot of people also tend to struggle with this boss a lot, and so I think that the best thing would be to do all your renown in every zone until you get the second skill point, and just keep farming dungeons that you haven't yet completed until you're about level 60 or 65. Once you've made it to World Tier 4, you're officially in the endgame, and one of the very first things you're going to notice, probably, is that things hit a lot harder. So in my opinion, your very first goal is going to be to get a decent set of ancestral gear. Personally, at this point in the game, I wouldn't even bother wasting time on sacred gear anymore, because ancestral gear is just going to have so much better stats that it's not really worth wasting your time and investing resources into sacred gear anymore. So now that I'm in World Tier 4, I did exactly like I did when I got to World Tier 3. I did the Tree of Whispers, completing dungeons that I haven't yet completed, and I would fill out the pieces of gear of mine that were really bad. And then whenever Hell Tides were up, I would go there and fill out the pieces that are bad as well. One thing that I would have done a little bit differently around this time when I was doing Hell Tides is that I would have gone for the mystery chests, but because it was so early into the launch of Diablo 4, nobody really knew about the mystery chests yet. But in case you don't know, every Helltide is going to spawn between 2 and 4 mystery chests. These mystery chests don't let you pick exactly what slot of gear to get, but they're going to give you anywhere between 3 and 5 legendaries and a lot of crafting materials. And once you get your main set of ancestral gear, the main purpose of Helltides is really going to be mostly for the Forgotten Souls so that you can recraft gear. After a while of farming dungeons and Helltides in World Tier 4, you're going to be at the point where you're around level 70 or so, and you're going to have a decent set of ancestral gear, and now is going to be when you're going to start looking to do some nightmare dungeons so that you could start farming your glyphs. In the endgame, by far your biggest form of power spikes are going to come through glyphs, and so once you get to the point in your Paragon board where you're able to socket in a new glyph, you're always going to want to go farm nightmare dungeons until that glyph is level 15. And so from here, between levels 70 to about 80 or maybe even 85, the gameplay loop is essentially going to be do nightmare dungeons every time you get a new glyph slot unlocked, level up your glyphs to level 15, and then go back and farm Hell Tides whenever those are up for the crafting materials. And this is around the time where, in my opinion, you're going to want to start doing your Altars of Lilith and finishing off your Renown. The reason why I chose to wait this long to do the Altars of Lilith and Renown is because I felt like early on, when I was leveling up fast enough, I was seeing progression pretty quickly, but once you reach around level 70 or 75, things really start to slow down quite a bit and your levels take quite long. So getting that big spike of 20 Paragon points for doing all the renown can feel pretty nice. Once all my renown was done and I had gotten all the altars of Lilith, there was really only one thing left to do, which was get level 100. And at the time of making this video, the best experience in the game was really just to farm normal dungeons. Nightmare dungeons were pretty good every once in a while to level up my glyphs, but for the most part, I was just spam running normal dungeons. Between levels 80 and 95, it felt like almost every single day whatever dungeon I was farming that was the best XP at the time was getting nerfed the next day. But at the time of making this video, I'd say right now the best options for XP are going to be Champion's Demise, especially if you have 3 players or more in your party. Blind Burrows, same thing, really good solo, but also really good in a party of 3. And then, in my opinion, the best solo XP is going to be Alder's Cave. The reason I believe Alder's Cave is the best option for solo players is because the dungeon layout itself is really just a straight line, and it has pretty good mob density throughout the entire thing. And so in my experience, the dungeon run would take anywhere around 3 to 3.5 minutes, and I was getting somewhere between 600 to 650k XP per run. I was running most of my dungeons solo, but every once in a while I would pick up a lower level friend just so that I can get the bonus group XP, as well as not needing to log in and out between every dungeon run. Instead, what you can do is you can just drop party and then re-invite them to the party, and that'll reset the instance. One last thing that I should mention is that once you reach level 95, the mobs stop scaling to your level. So every level that you get above 95, you're going to get less and less XP from normal dungeons. And I was reaching a point where between levels 99 to 100, I was getting roughly half the XP I was normally getting, and it felt really slow. And so what I did was I found this really great guide from a YouTube channel called Crouching Tuna that basically shows you how you can infinitely farm the same nightmare dungeon over and over and over.
Yeah, what's up everybody, it's Tuna. So I wanted to show you guys actually how you can reset infinitely a nightmare dungeon to farm your preferred layout over and over.
And what I did was I rolled a level 50 Blind Burrows dungeon with really easy affixes, and I just farmed that dungeon over and over. So instead of getting around 250k XP per run, I was getting anywhere between 900k to 1 million XP per run, and the runs would only take me about 4 minutes. So in total, level 99 to 100 probably took me somewhere around an hour and a half. And so that was my journey to level 100, and I believe that going forward into the future, I think most people are actually going to end up leveling a little bit differently, since the devs have announced that Nightmare Dungeons in the future are going to be more rewarding. So the meta at some point might not be to run just normal dungeons, and it might be better off just running Nightmare Dungeons. With the knowledge I have now, I probably would have done a few things differently. So as I mentioned before, one of the main things is I probably would have only gotten into World Tier 4 once I was level 60 so that I could actually benefit from Ancestral Gear. Another thing I would do differently is picking up side quests along the way while doing the main story quest line, since the XP you're going to get from the side quests is going to be a lot more beneficial when you're low level, and also having to go back and do those side quests at around level 75 and doing, anywhere between 50 and 80 side quests in a row can be kind of tedious and annoying. Overall, it took me about 2 weeks and about 150 hours of gameplay to get from level 1 to 100, but I believe that could be done a lot faster, especially now that there's more information about the game. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video will help you get to level 100 just a little bit faster. And if you've enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for future content. Also, for any of you who are playing Sorcerer, I just recently uploaded a full guide on my Ice Shard Sorcerer build, so make sure to check that out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.